With all of the drama that we've experienced with Prince Harry and Meghan for the last couple of years, I thought it would be interesting to take a look at Prince Harry's chart and really determine what are the emotional adversaries. That's what I'm going to be talking about today. And while we're doing this, you'll be able to even learn about your own chart and how you can determine what your emotional adversaries are, what your biggest obstacles are in this life. So that's what we're going to be taking a look at today using Vedic astrology. For those of you that are new to my channel, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you to all my new patrons and subscribers. Also, I practice Vedic sidereal astrology, which is the astrology from ancient India, if you're curious. The charts are going to look different, and also the way we calculate things is different, so your sign might be different using this method. My goal is 10,000 subs. We are at almost 4,300, I believe. So thank you for all the new subs. If you're interested in a private reading, check down below for details. And also, I am part of a new channel called Psychic News Report. I'm with some other talented members of the team. Check down below for details if you're interested. Basically, it's centered on news, and of course, I'm the astrologer on it. So, if you're interested in kind of correlating news with metaphysical, it's a great channel to look at. All right, so before we start, I also want to tell you guys, entertainment purposes only. Anything we say about Prince Harry's chart, these are all speculation based on the astrological energies, and also these are all allegedlys. All right, so let's go ahead and put up Prince Harry's chart. And this is the chart right here. For those of you that are new to this Vedic astrology, in Vedic astrology, Prince Harry is actually a Sagittarius ascendant. So, what we're going to be looking at today is what are the emotional enemies or the emotional adversaries that Prince Harry has. Now, when we talk about emotional adversaries, these are the people that cause us the deepest pain, the deepest emotional problems, the deepest trigger. These are the agents in our life script that have this purpose. So the idea in Vedic astrology is that your life is not an accident, that everything's planned, and all the cast of characters in your life are also part of that karma and game plan. So that's what we're looking at. Let me pull that chart back up again. Okay, so when we're looking at emotional adversaries, what's going to be important to look at is you want to first look at where your moon is. And why do you want to look at moon? Well, you want to look at moon because it represents your emotions, your emotional sense, your sense of well-being. So when we're talking about emotional adversaries, we're really thinking, what is a threat to your well-being? Now, by the way, these threats are not objective. Remember, this is all subjective. So, what may be perceived by Prince Harry to be an emotional threat is not necessarily something that Prince William would perceive as an emotional threat. Remember, these are all built into your own karma. And this chart is going to be the perspective, the astrological perspective of Prince Harry. So, first, we want to look at where the moon is, and we want to make that the first house. Now, I know it's technically the fifth house if we look over here, but we're making it the first house when we're determining emotional adversaries. And then what we're doing is we're counting clockwise. We're numbering these until we get to 6. So these right here, the 6 from moon, are going to be the emotional adversaries in this current lifetime. So there's several things we can get out of this chart. If you look, there's the fact that it's the 10th house. Now, I know you can't see the number because it's really small there, but it's the 10th house. It's the sign of Virgo. Also, we got planet Venus there, and we got sun there. Now, all of those things in the chart have a meaning. So the 10th house has a specific meaning. The sign of Virgo is going to have some meaning. The sun as a karaka, the sun actually represents people. It has many different meanings. Venus can even represent people. So we're going to break that all down so you all can get kind of a perspective of what are the problems, the emotional, the emotional instigators according to Prince Harry. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And let me go ahead and change the slide for all of you. So let's talk about emotional adversaries just for a moment, look what they are. And I think I already described some of it, but I want to make sure you all understand what this means. And then we're going to talk about who are all these agents. So the idea with Vedic astrology is that your incarnation has a life script. So everything in your life, and in Prince Harry's life, there's a life script. The parents, the situation he was born, the family he has. So King Charles, Princess Diana, that was not an accident. So key players like your parents, your spouse, your bosses, they're all in the life script. Within the life script are people, institutions, ideologies that are considered emotional adversaries. I want to point out that it's not just necessarily people. There can be a certain ideology or a certain philosophy that's your adversary, something that you're vehemently against. It could be a political ideology, it could be a religious ideology. So there can even be ideologies in institutions. It could even be, institutions and countries that, so there's all these there's certain specific players in your life that are going to be that. These are situations and people that tend to be a drain on the emotional life force. They tend to drain the emotions. They tend to be, we're giving a lot more energy than we're receiving in return. So that's what 6 for moon is going to indicate in Prince Harry's chart, and also your chart if you want to look. So let's really break down, because each one of these issues, and let me pull up the chart again. Let me clean that up for a second. But each one of those issues that we talked about, the planets, they all represent different things. Now, sometimes there's a general meaning. So, like, for example, sun can represent your father, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But sun can also represent authority. It can represent government. It can represent royalty. It can represent your own sense of authority. So there's a lot to unpack with each one of these specific items. So when we're looking at sun, we're looking at Venus, we're looking at Virgo, we're looking at the 10th house. There's a lot to unpack there. So let's go ahead and pull up the slide. And let me change the slide for you all. So enemies of contentment is actually a really good name for it. So if you think about what in your life causes you to not be content, causes you to stress, causes you to have all this anxiety, causes your mind just to really go a lot of places. That's what we're talking about. So the 10th house, let's talk about that. Remember, it's the 10th house of Virgo. So the 10th house, it represents your reputation. It represents your career. It represents public responsibilities. It represents too many expectations. So when we talk about this being an enemy of contentment, so for example, reputation might be a really big deal to Prince Harry. This might be one of those things when he reads a newspaper, when he reads a negative article, it can actually really trigger the emotional contentment. So this might be a very sensitive issue for Prince Harry. Public responsibilities, maybe, and we'd have to talk to Prince Harry, but when he left the royal duties, it's actually very obvious. The royal duties could have actually been a really sore spot on Prince Harry. Maybe he didn't like having that obligation for whatever reason. It was very triggering, whatever that was. Maybe he wanted to have more of a free spirit. Now, I know everybody likes to blame Meghan on that one, why he let go of the public or the royal responsibilities and then our duties, and then decided to pack up and move to the US. But according to the chart, 6 for moon, he didn't really he may have not liked the duties. Okay. So maybe he was kind of just going through the motions. Maybe he was just kind of, just going along with it, but maybe he just didn't like it. Maybe he wanted to be a little bit more free-spirited. So let's talk about Virgo. Now, Virgo, each one of the signs can have a lot of meanings to it, like a general meaning. So when we talk about Virgo represents, it's ruled by the planet Mercury. So it represents all those sort of mercurial things. But Virgo has a specific kind of representation that's really based in perfectionism. So when we think of someone that overthinks, criticism, nitpicky people, rigid people, judgmental people. So this is someone who doesn't like people that are too by the book, somebody that's too much into decorum. And if you really think about it, isn't that what, I mean, when you're in the royal family, everything is about decorum. Everything is about, you have to bow a certain way. You have to, when you're stepping away from the king, you have to, back up. There's all these, there's so many rituals and protocols. So with Virgo being 6 from moon, it can show this is definitely not something that's enjoyable. Maybe he doesn't like all this perfectionism, this decorum, these rules, this pomp, this circumstance, all this stuff. He also doesn't like nitpicky people. So, there might have been advisors around him. Maybe they're very nitpicky. Maybe you need to wear something a certain way. Maybe you need to follow these protocols. And maybe he doesn't like that. Now let's talk about the sun. This is very obvious because the relationship, when we think about the Oprah interview, when we think about the book Spare, we can talk about his relationship with his brother, Prince William. But if you think about it, it's mainly his relationship with his father. This is the trigger point here. And we heard that Prince Harry, I believe he went back to the UK recently for the Invictus Games University. And according to the tabloids, he was snubbed by the king. So this is definitely something that's emotionally triggering for Prince Harry. So anything surrounding his father, okay, that's going to be really triggering. For example, he might feel like he can't ever please his father. He might feel that his father, well, look, sun is in Virgo. He might feel that his son or his father is very much about protocol. His father maybe be too rigid. He might be too judgmental. Now, this is not objectively about King Charles. This is subjective. Remember, this is what Prince Harry's thinking. My father's nitpicky. My father wants me to follow all these rules, all these protocols. So that's what that means. So this is very triggering. Also, sun, just this idea of authority. He might be somebody, he just doesn't like having authority over him. He was always considered, even from a young age, people always thought of Prince Harry as more of the rebellious one or the more free-spirited one. So a lot of us remember, Prince Harry going to these parties and he seemed like actually the fun one, to be honest. But, he maybe he doesn't like the tight grip of authority. And when you're in an institution like the royal family, well, there's a lot of protocols. There's a lot of, even King Charles on a certain level, if you think about it, he still has to follow certain protocols. He's not necessarily just free to do whatever he wants. There's certain expectations that are placed on him, certain things that he needs to as king, he's expected to act in a certain way to show up to certain events. Let's go back to the slide real quick. And also Venus. Remember, Venus is there. Venus, it typically represents spouse in a man's chart. And I know nowadays we can update it on, so basically we have to customize that based on the client. But traditionally in a man's chart, Venus represents a spouse. So if you think about it, wow, we can look at the marriage in another video specifically, but right away we know Venus is going to be, the spouse is going to be a source of a lot of difficulty on an emotional level. This doesn't give us a whole lot. We just know that it's triggering. Okay. There's other factors we can look at as far as the marriage goes, and we'll probably do another video on that. Romantic relationships in general are triggering. So, and Venus can represent general, like generally just like women in a general way in someone's life. So this can be just a difficult, subject for Prince Harry. Now, I don't know how the dating life was with Prince Harry before, Meghan. I'm sure he went out dating and met people, but it was a source of, it could have been an emotional sore spot because Venus is 6 from moon. Could have been difficulty. Also finding balance in relationships. Attractiveness, Venus is our sense of attractiveness. There can be this idea of, maybe he's self-conscious about his appearance, how how attractive he is. That might be something he thinks about. But finding balance is something I want to talk about for a moment. Venus represents our ability to be diplomatic with other people. So when we are, it could show that this is a difficult subject. Maybe there's certain things that Prince Harry really feels passionately about. There's really no middle ground for him, and so it's sometimes can be very triggering. Maybe he's told, "Hey, you need to try to get along with everybody." Maybe even from a young age, but he really wants to stand by what he believes or what he believes is right. So that's what we got for some of the aspects of the emotional adversaries. Of course, in all of your charts, you can all look at 6 houses from your moon. Now, the more planets you have there, the more aspects you have there, the more you have, that's kind of like emotional triggers in your life. If it's an empty house, maybe it's just you're more looking at what the house represents and what the sign represents. So it's still going to have some meaning no matter what. Even if there's no planets in that house, you can kind of get an idea just by the sign and the house, what kind of characters in your life script are going to be those kind of people that really, really get you emotionally. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know about other videos. If you want me to take a look at 6 from Moon with other royal family members or celebrities, let me know. Or if you want to look at other aspects, let me know. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next video.